If you're delivering content that has any kind of access or licensing requirements that are attached to it, whether that's broadcast content, premium VOD, or anything where you need to control who can watch it, at some point you're going to need DRM. This video covers how digital rights management works inside of MKIO, what the platform handles for you, how the three components fit together, and what you need to understand before you start configuring it. The next two videos will be more hands-on, so that will cover ClearKey first, and then full multi-DRM, but the concepts here apply to both, so it's worth getting this straight just before we jump into the steps. DRM encrypts your media content so that only authorized players and devices can decrypt and play it back. So what you're distributing over HLS or Dash is encrypted segments, and they're useless without the decryption key. That key is only issued by a license server and only after the player has demonstrated that the viewer is authorized to watch. MKIO handles the DRM key management and license delivery for you, so you don't need to run your own license server, and what instead you're configuring is the policy. This is which encryption schemes to use and whether viewers need to present a token to get a license. So there's one thing to get clear before we go further. ClearKey encryption, which we'll look at first, is not the same level of protection as full DRM. So ClearKey provides basic encryption with the lowest possible latency, and it's suitable for basic protection and testing scenarios. For content that genuinely needs to be locked down, so studio licensed material or premium subscriptions, you want to use Widevine, PlayReady, and Fairplay. Try not to mix ClearKey with those DRM schemes in the same content key policy either, as combining them reduces the security effectiveness of the whole policy. DRM protection in MKIO relies on three components working together. So once you understand what each one does, the configuration steps will make a lot more sense. First, we have the content key policy. The content key policy defines which encryption schemes to use, whether that's ClearKey, Widevine, PlayReady, Fairplay, or some combination of those four. And also whether a web token is required for the license acquisition. So you create it once and you reuse it across as many streaming locators as you need. It's a reusable template. Next is the streaming policy. And this determines the encryption format that is applied to your package streams. So MKIO provides predefined policies for common configurations. First is clear streaming, and this is no encryption. So this is only for testing unprotected playback. Next is ClearKey. This is basic ClearKey encryption over HLS and Dash. And then we have Multi-DRM streaming, and this activates Widevine, PlayReady via CENC. Finally, we have Multi-DRM streaming, and this is full multi-DRM covering Widevine, Fairplay, and PlayReady. The streaming policy enforces which DRM schemes must be present in the content key policy. If you create a locator with multi-DRM streaming and your content key policy doesn't include all three schemes, then the locator creation fails. The same logic applies to the multi-DRM sync streaming. This fails if Widevine or PlayReady are missing from the policy. So the two have to match. And finally, we have the streaming locator. So the streaming locator ties a specific asset to a streaming policy and a content key policy. When MKIO generates the playback URLs for that locator, those URLs point to the encrypted content. It also generates license acquisition URLs, and these are the endpoints that your player uses to request decryption licenses from MKIO. So the player fetches the manifest from your streaming endpoint, it sees that the content is encrypted, and it identifies from the manifest which DRM system is in use. It then sends a license acquisition request to MKIO. If the content policy requires a token restriction, then the player must include a valid web token in that request. That token is generated by your application backend, and it's passed to the player, and it's proof that the viewer is authenticated and entitled to watch. MKIO validates the token against the issuer, audience, and primary verification key that you configured in the policy. If the token's valid, then MKIO returns the decryption license. If the token is missing, expired, or the claims don't match, then the request is rejected and the player can't decrypt. And that's the whole access control mechanism. Different browsers and devices support different DRM systems, and the player handles the negotiation automatically. so it picks whichever system its environment supports. Chrome, Firefox, and Android use Widevine over Dash. Safari, iOS, and macOS use FairPlay over HLS. Edge on Windows uses PlayReady over Dash. And smart TVs vary, but most support Widevine or PlayReady over Dash. For a full compatibility matrix, there's a link to the Bitmovin DRM support reference in the description. Predefined multi-DRM streaming is the right choice for production in most cases because you're covered across all of those platforms with a single locator. Before you add encryption, verify your unprotected playback first. Before adding any encryption to an asset, we want to create a streaming locator with the clear streaming only and confirm it plays cleanly. If the asset doesn't play without encryption, then adding DRM on top won't fix it, and it will just add another layer of variables for you to debug. So we want to get to a clean, unencrypted state first, and then add protection afterwards. And that's the starting point for the two videos. There's three components. The content key policy defines your encryption schemes and token requirements. The streaming policy determines the encryption format and enforces which schemes must be present. And then the streaming locator ties everything together to a specific asset and generates your encrypted playback and license URLs. The next video will cover ClearKey. This is the simplest configuration and the right place to start to get familiar with how it all fits together before we get into full multi-DRM. And thanks for watching.